Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Future of CRE Sustainability. Today, I'm speaking with David Kollmorgen, Global Head of Real Estate for JLL. David, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Sean. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, David, with your experience advising global clients like Procter & Gamble and others across 62 countries, what's the biggest misconception corporate leaders have today about sustainable real estate?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that sustainability comes at a cost.
Mm.
And, if you're a P&L owner, if you're paid on the basis of your P&L, you're resistant to anything that increases your cost. And so I think people know that it's very important to their employees, especially younger employees, right? That the companies embrace sustainability as a part of their mission. But as a senior manager of the corporate leadership, I think there's just a misconception that sustainability costs more. And Sean, this is something I learned at P&G. They call it the power of and, which is we want to be sustainable and have it cost less, right? We want to reduce costs of our global real estate footprint and have our employee experience increase. It's the power of and sustainability, even at a place like P&G, which is super progressive around sustainability, It's the power of and. We will implement the sustainability measure if it's the same or lower cost. And so I think that that's a myth that needs to be broken, is that we can be sustainable. In fact, sustainability becomes sustainable when it's cost effective, when it's lower cost. That's when it really gets traction. So that's I think the biggest misconception we have to break down. It's good for our climate, it's good for our people, and it's good for our bottom line.
I couldn't agree more. David, I don't think any of my listeners need help understanding who JLL is, but maybe you could just do a 60 seconds on who you are and your role at JLL and what you're driving.
Okay, great, Sean. JLL is one of the world's largest real estate service providers, $23 billion in revenue, Fortune 200 company, roughly 110,000 employees. We work in 80 countries, but we have offices in about 42 countries.
Wow.
The majority of our 112,000 people sit at client sites. Mm-hmm. The minority actually sit in a JLL office. And those 400 offices that we have in those 42 countries, I'm responsible for those. So I'm the head of real estate, managing JLL's own portfolio. And imagine this, Sean, being the head of real estate in a company with 110,000 real estate experts.
A lot of cooks in that kitchen.
A lot of cooks in that kitchen. And they're all smart and articulate and ambitious and aggressive. And yes, I get to be the head of real estate.
Sounds like a pretty fun experience. I love the integration with your corporate clients. I think that's probably part and parcel to your success. How have corporate tenant expectations around sustainable workplaces changed just in the time you've been in the industry?
Yeah, they've changed a lot. I mean, I think they've changed just in respect to, it's so important for employees to know that their companies, where they work, where they spend most of their life, have a social mission of improving the environment, And then I think, the industries realize that we make we contribute so much to the carbon footprint around the globe that we have a real moral responsibility to do something about that. And now we I see it in every single thing we do. Mm-hmm. And, my own little sustainability team, they are now involved in site selection, right? Are we going to buildings that are electrified, that have really good energy efficiency? Are we fitting out spaces that have low embodied carbon, right? Are we getting into LEED or BREEAM certified buildings and spaces? Are we operating the space as efficiently as we can from a consumption perspective, from a water perspective, from a waste perspective? I mean, it's a part of every single piece of the real estate life cycle today. Mm-hmm. And it's not new, but it's evolving. And it's exciting. And now we can see the metric tons of CO2 that we emit each year go down. And we're on a glide path to get to net zero by 2030. So my team is managing this global portfolio that kicks off 30,000 megawatt hours of electric consumption every year, and we're going to get that to net zero by 2030. Yeah. And it's fun and it's exciting. And there's a lot of changes going on, as you know, in the sustainability space. So we have to have really good data to know exactly what our consumption is. We've got to put really good business plans together to make investments, to reduce our consumption. We've got to monitor our progress. And then, Sean, at some point you say, listen, I'm never going to get to zero from a consumption perspective. My computer's always going to need power. My lights are always going to need power. I'm going to have to get some renewable energy credits to offset that final gap. And so, we buy renewable energy credits today. Most of them are 1 year in term, right? So they're short term. They're not very expensive. They're generally available around the world, except in some places in Asia, right, where other big corporates have bought up all the renewable energy credits. And so we've kind of made a decision that we need to go to a longer term solution, which is really a renewable energy, a VPPA agreement of some kind, where we can bring new renewable energy to a dirty grid, really make a difference from a renewable energy perspective, and then use those credits, to offset our footprint. So, and we're looking at carbon capture technologies, and we're looking at everything that's out there, the whole spectrum of potential solutions. But right now, we're very focused on a VPPA and trying to have that be a major offset of our carbon footprint.
I love to hear that. VPPs are the future in my mind. You mentioned technology. Is there a technology trend or maybe a PropTech solution that has helped sort of this revolutionary trend of corporations and how they're approaching real estate sustainability strategies? Is there something that's really driving that from a technology standpoint?
No, it's just, honestly, it's just measuring your consumption, right? We do that through smart meters, right? We're trying to get very predictive about our consumption. So we can, at every single site in the world, we can do a 12-month forecast of what our electric consumption is going to be. I think that consumption piece allows you then to say, okay, where can I improve? And how do I see whether that improvement's actually help? I think and that's not a specific technology solution, to be honest with you. It's more of data uploads into a BI platform, and then we build Tableau dashboards on top of that. I think that's the main driver, Sean. I mean, and the other thing to me, Sean, as I always think about this is, the most sustainable space you have is the space you don't occupy or you don't take. And we're just very focused on utilization and saying we are going to plan our space based on utilization, not on headcount, not on occupancy, but actual utilization. And oddly enough, I don't know, I'll use this silly analogy. For most of our industry, office buildings are like airplanes. They're full of seats. They take off every day. The only difference is we don't know how many people are on the plane, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't know how many people are on our airplane. And that's not right. We need to know when they come in, how long they stay, when they leave, what Monday through Friday looks like with a lot of accuracy. And Sean, I hope we get to a point soon where we can build predictive analytics. And I know on July 15th, how many people will be in my office. So I know how much I need to clean. I know how much I need to provision the cafeteria. I know so many things I do in my office space every day, how much power I'm going to need. We're not there yet, but that's the dream. So, it's one part measuring consumption and managing consumption really closely, but it's also managing your footprint really efficiently. So it's a combination of those two things. And there's no simple technology solution out there. It's really gathering the data and putting it in the right analytical tools and driving it that way.
It's surprising how many of my guests go to that space and energy usage data as just kind of, it seems so simple, but it's so important to be able to make the right decisions. So I love that you went there. How do global companies, the ones that you work with all the time, navigate varying sustainability regulations across different regions of the world while ensuring they're driving consistent standards within their whole portfolio?
Yeah, that's a challenge. I mean, for us, it's to have a team in-house that stays on top of all the sustainability regulations globally, just like to stay on top of data privacy regulations, right? And so what you tend to do is move to the strictest interpretation of those rules and make that your global standard. And for sustainability, for me, for the most part, that comes out of the UK.
Yep.
They're just the most progressive in all elements of embodied carbon and energy efficiency. And so that's kind of the standard we try to use as our baseline. And we know that in some markets, particularly in Asia, it's just going to be harder to get there in India, right?
Yep.
In some of the other Asian markets. But that doesn't mean we should change the standards or try and lower those. So that's how we think about, and they're changing, right? They're changing almost state by state sometimes in the US. So it is difficult to stay on top of them.
What do you think is the biggest challenge in getting leadership buy-in for sustainability investments, especially when they're looking at them against like short-term cost-saving programs?
Yeah, again, I think we just have to make it about, it's not an incremental expense, right? There will be a return on investment to almost all of these sustainability initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I said earlier. It's putting the right business case together to say, we want to put smart meters in, or we want to, go to zero waste and landfill at this site or whatever. But here's the positive economic benefit that's going to happen after we do this.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's got a 1.5 or 2 year, 3 year payback, they'll sign up for that all day long. And part of what we want to do too, right? This is part of when you and I opened, we were talking about, what's the right delivery model? We have to think about improving the cost of our service delivery year over year, right? But part of what that comes with that cost savings is the request to reinvest some of those savings back into things that are important to us. And sustainability is one of those things. So if I can save $3 on cleaning and other expense items, I want to reinvest $1 or $2 back into sustainability. And the businesses love that, right? Because their P&L is getting better and they're meeting a corporate priority. And again, it's a win-win. So I think that's the key.
I love that. I love that you brought up the payback period and it being 2 to 3 years for a lot of these programs. I feel like there's been a tidal change in the last few years, because sometimes I'll talk to people on the street and they'll be like, oh, I ran the numbers years ago. It was an 8-9 year payback period. I'm like, well, have you run it lately? Because what didn't pencil then might really pencil today.
Exactly. Yes. No question about it.
Speaking of, can you share maybe from your past a compelling business case that you were able to share with a client that convinced them to make that sustainable building upgrade investment?
Sean, I don't have one off the top of my head. I think as a category for our clients, it's been in old owned assets, right? Where we say, listen, this chiller, this boiler they are so energy efficient that, right, we can put these in. This energy savings will, again, have a short payback period, and those become almost no-brainers. I think programmatically, those have been the ones that have had the biggest impact, and they've been the easiest to sell. And, right, I remember I did a lot of work with Deutsche Bank, and they even put a fund together to say, we'll finance, the new chiller and boiler. You don't even have to come up with the capital for it. And we'll share the savings. So there's a little bit of benefit for both of us. So there's even financing to do these types of conversions. I think those are the neatest. Yeah, I think that's probably the best example I could give you.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
How are leading corporations using sustainable real estate as a competitive advantage, especially when it comes to things like talent attraction?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's so important to young workers to know that the company has a purpose that they can identify with.
Mm-hmm.
And sustainability is one of those purposes. And, we do things in the office that sometimes are inconvenient for employees. We take away plastic. Well, I love my plastic cup to get a glass of water, right? Or whatever. No, I'm sorry. You got to use a cup and you got to use a dishwasher. But they embrace it, right? I can't take the garbage and throw it in a little bin next to me. I got to take it to a recycle bin. But those inconveniences, they support, they embrace because they believe in the bigger contribution it's making. And it's really, really important to both attract and retain employees. The thing I wish we did better is communicate to our employees, because they don't know what we're doing with renewable energy in the background, right? That's the sustainability group doing their own thing. But to communicate to them, hey, we're trying to put this VPPA together, or we're buying these renewable energy credits, or we're using these green tariffs, kind of all done at the enterprise level. We don't communicate those type of activities well enough because they'd love to hear about those things. So that's on my personal to-do list, is to tell the sustainability story in our own company much better because it's so important to our employees.
I love that you're looking at it from that angle. So important. Tell me, David, how do you help clients integrate workplace flexibility with their sustainability commitments without compromising either one?
Yeah, again, I think the key thing for us is we've kind of gone from our clients saying, would you please help us measure our consumption, right? Get invoices from landlords, help us automate that if you can. It's almost simply a reporting function, Sean. And it's really now moved to, hey, this has got to be a part of the whole real estate life cycle. Like I said, it's got to start with site selection, get us in the right building. It's got to start with how we fit off our space, reduce embodied carbon, right? It's got to start with how we operate once we're in our space, right? And with how do we dispose of the materials that we put in our building, right? And we track those and we purchase them in a way that they'll have a useful life beyond our use for them. I think that is just so different today because my sustainability team sits in on the site selection meetings. They sit in on the design meetings. They sit on the project meetings. They never did that before, right? They just kind of said, oh, get it LEED certified and, we'll put meters in. And it's just a different world in that respect. And that, I don't think anybody says there's incremental embedded cost in doing that. If I reuse a piece of furniture, I save money. If I reuse some office space and a fit out, I save money. If I go, there's just, I think they see the economic benefits as well as sustainability benefits. And so there's not a view that this is costing us more. It's just how we do business. And it's a better way to do business.
Is there a regulatory trend in sustainability in commercial real estate that the leaders in our space should really be preparing for or thinking really closely about that's going to start to impact them?
Well, John, I'll tell you the one I think about is just the embodied carbon one, right? Because when we're going to take a new space in London called One Broadgate. It's a brand new development. And the building, they tore down an old building, had a lot of granite in it, and they ground up all that granite, and they're going to reuse it in a new building. Right. And we're out buying used raised floor. We're buying used furniture. We're going to put used monitors in there. I mean,
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's just unbelievable what we're going to do. But that embodied carbon, in my mind, there's not a solid metric for that.
Yep.
Right. Like a standard fit out is so many tons of CO2. And your goal is going to be X minus 50 of a standard fit out from a embodied carbon perspective. Because that will change how we build buildings. It'll change how we fit out space. The whole reuse and recycle industry will go through the roof because that'll be so important to us. So that's the one that I'm anticipating could have the biggest change. And, we're trying now to make that an active way that we do business. So we'll embrace it when it comes. But that's the one I think about the most, embodied carbon.
I love that you're on the front foot about that, not going to be reactionary to it.
Yeah.
How do you see renewable energy integration changing corporate real estate decision making over the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think it's that point that you and I talked about earlier where we say, to get to net zero, I'm going to have to deploy renewable energy in my portfolio. And our perspective at JLL is, we can buy renewable energy credits today for renewable energy projects that were done 10 years ago. I'm not really adding anything new to the grid if I do that. So that additionality element of renewable energy is it's very important to us.
Yep.
And Sean, I worry about the availability of existing renewable energy credits. I think as every company tries to hit their goal, the demand for those is going to go way up.
Yep.
I worry about the price of those, right? We buy them annually. As demand for renewable energy credits go up, the price is going to go up. So that's why I love, a long-term renewable energy project that's adding new renewable energy to the grid. It's a long-term fixed rate contract. It, step changes our carbon footprint. I'm with you. I see a lot of benefits of VPPAs, and I see a lot more of those being developed in the future. And the key for us will be, and for the industry will be, our 30,000 megawatts is tiny compared to these AI requirements. And so the ability to syndicate those out in small pieces is going to be really important, right? So if I can't take 800,000 megawatts, all I need is 10,000 megawatts. I need to be able to take a small piece in a much bigger project. And the industry is not very mature in that respect right now. So will be an important development.
Yeah, we're sitting here in the US, and you mentioned that project in the EU. And if you look at the EU and Australia and places like that are so far ahead of us in the renewable energy game, it's perplexing. And
Yeah.
I hope we're going to close that gap over the next few years.
Yeah.
What is one sustainable real estate solution that delivers immediate ROI that more companies ought to be considering?
There's so many, Sean. I'm not sure I could pick one.
You can pick multiple if you like.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think about this project that we're doing in London. We are measuring how much energy every single device consumes, right? How much energy does the digital signage in the lobby consume? How much energy do the monitors you use consume? Do you have to have 2 monitors? How much do the switches consume? How much does the HVA system consume? And we're looking at every single watt and try and engineer that down to be as efficient as possible. Daylight harvesting, gosh, Sean, every single thing. How can we build a cafeteria to use less energy as it warms up food? I just, there's so many things to look at and to try and make energy efficient. It's hard for me to say, oh, if you just did LED lighting, or if you just did, this one thing, it's like you'll make a big step. You have to do 100 little things. That's how we get there. Yeah. So we should do, Sean, let's do a post opening of this London project, and I'll be able to tell you many, many stories about
I would love it.
We think state of the art looks like. Yeah.
100 little things, not one big thing. I love that.
Yeah.
Looking ahead 5 years down the road, what is one piece of advice you'd give to a CRE executive who wants their portfolio to drive competitive advantage rather than just managing costs?
When I was on Procter & Gamble, they've outsourced their real estate to JLL 20 years ago, and we've had a fabulous relationship with them. I think they're one of the best managed companies in the world. Mm-hmm. And they always raise the bar. Every single year they raise the bar. And they came to me at one point and said, listen, everybody in P&G reads this book called The Goal, right? And it's about a manufacturing plant manager who takes over the plant. And all the advice he gets from the finance people, you need to manage profitability, you need to manage inventory. From the operations people, you need to automate and put robotics in, you need to use data. From HR, you need to manage attrition, right? You get it, Sean, from sustainability. You got to, yeah. And the plant manager says, wait a minute, what is my goal? What is the goal? And I'm reading this and I'm thinking, okay, I get their point. As the head of real estate, I have to say, what is the goal of corporate real estate? Mm-hmm. Because everything comes from that goal. My delivery team, my analytics, my priorities, it all comes from the goal. Mm-hmm. So thinking deeply about that, I think for future CRE executives is really important. Now, for us, there's 3 goals, 3 big outcomes that are really important to our enterprise. I mean, they're important at the business level, not at the site level, not at the line of business level, but to our company. And big goal number 1, big outcome number 1 is to reduce the cost to serve, right? To make the portfolio more efficient.
Yep.
That's got 4 elements. The size of the portfolio, our operating expenses, the size of the delivery team, and depreciation or capital, efficient use of capital. I have to manage those 4 pillars really rigorously to reduce the cost to serve year over year.
Yep.
Right. Second, and this is where the power of and comes in, I have to improve the workplace experience. Procter & Gamble came to us at one point and said, listen, you've got all these KPIs around facilities management, and they're all green. And we're really unhappy, the watermelon KPI, green on the outside, red on the inside. Mm-hmm. And they said, we are attracting and retaining employees is so important to us, right? And the culture we build is so important to us. We think the workplace has a major role in their health, their productivity, our ability to retain them and attract them. We want you to manage the workplace experience. This is not facilities management, Sean. It's not, doing preventative work orders. It's not reactive work orders. It's not doing a project. It's managing the employees' productivity in their workspace. So you've got to reduce the cost to serve. At the same time, you have to improve the workplace experience. And the third one, of course, is you have corporate priorities to meet. And that number 1 priority is hitting your sustainability targets. So those are the 3 big things people have to focus on. Now, if you see what happens in our industry is people don't focus on the outcomes. They don't organize around the outcomes. They don't have capabilities around those outcomes. They have services. They have a group that does portfolio management. They have a group that does transactions, a group that does lease administration, a group that does occupancy planning. It's just a bunch of services. And their goal seems to be operational excellence across all those services. But that's just making the trains run on time, Sean. It's not adding value at the enterprise level. It's not improving margins. It's not improving the employees of my workers that really make a difference. And so I just hope corporate real estate says, hey, there is a very big set of outcomes we can deliver that are important to the enterprise, goes way beyond operational excellence and making the trains run on time. And, we've got to think about what the right delivery model is and what those big outcomes are. And then organize, build tools around those and go deliver on them. And, that'll take real estate a long way, corporate real estate executives, and they'll help us implement the big changes we want to make, right? To get to net zero, right? To build more sustainable portfolios, to do what's right for our employees and the environment and our shareholders.
You weren't kidding when you told me earlier you had an important perspective on the value prop in commercial real estate. That was well stated. Wow. That was amazing, David. I want to move to some lightning round questions. So just your quick hit answers on some of these. Solar, battery storage, nuclear, geothermal. What's your bet for the fastest growing renewable energy source in commercial real estate in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think it's going to be nuclear. I think it's going to be small scale nuclear, right? That you can almost build a nuclear unit that's so small it powers a data center. I think that's the future. I mean, France is 80% nuclear, right? That's the key to me. I just don't think, and you've got to build that base load, right? When the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, you have to have the base load covered. So I do think, Sean, it's going to be nuclear. But again, there's a lot of new technologies developing really quickly. And in a sense, we want to participate in those. We want to encourage those. We want to see if they'll work. So yeah, I'm very open-minded about what that's going to be. I really want to have a renewable energy source at an office building level, right? I can say this building has its own little renewable energy power plant.
Yep.
It's completely green. I don't think we'll get there, but to me, that would be the dream.
I share that dream with you. Can you name one PropTech solution that kind of blew you away when you saw it in practice and it just exceeded your expectations?
Let me tell you the one I think I'm most excited about. It's building digital twins of our buildings, right? It's so I don't have to physically be in a building and I can see everything that's going on in there. I can see every conference room that's being used. I know how many people are in there. I know what the indoor air quality is. I know what the CO2 levels are. John, I've got this digital footprint of my building that's a twin of the real building, and I can manage it remotely. I can monitor it remotely. I'm very excited about digital twins and what they'll do for our business. And I can do a lot of neat modeling. And yeah, I mean, JLL's got this new product called JLL Serve. It's effectively a digital twin. I mean, a mechanic can go up to an air handling unit and take a picture of it, and it'll say, this is a train unit built in 1982. Here's the operating manual. Here's the history of repairs on it. It's just unbelievable.
It's so darn cool.
Yeah. And I just can't wait for AI to agentic AI, especially in our space. It's going to be hard because it's, all of these tools depend on good data, consistent, timely, accurate data, Sean. And our CRE data tends to be a mess, tends to be a hash. And I think we've underestimated how important it is, right? And data comes from consistent business processes and consistent data definitions. And when we have multiple service providers using multiple technologies and different data definitions, our data is a hash. And you can't put AI on top of that. And so that's going to be a big challenge for our industry is we need really good data, and we got to find a way to produce consistent, accurate, timely data.
Speaking of data, what is that super important sustainability metric that you check every week, or maybe it's every morning over your coffee?
Are we on our, carbon footprint glide path, reduction glide path or not?
Yep.
It's in our revolving line of credit, Sean. It's in my performance reviews. It's so important to us as a company. It's so important to me personally. It's important to my boss. Hitting our carbon reduction goals is the one I look at all the time.
Love that. Yeah. Complete this sentence. The biggest myth about green buildings is
they're more expensive. I think that's the biggest myth.
Mhm.
Yeah. But they're not more expensive. And of course, as an investor, they're worth more, right? Investors want to buy green buildings. Tenants want to be in green buildings. They'll pay higher rent to be in a green building. It's a virtuous circle. People I think the industry's figuring that out pretty quickly, to be honest with you.
All right, last one. You're a extremely wealthy investor with a large portfolio of assets and unlimited capital to invest in the next sustainable property upgrade. What's the first thing you're putting that capital towards?
Probably converting it to electricity if it's not, getting it off the old gas systems I think that's probably it. Yeah.
Simple yet effective. David, this was an incredible chat, enlightening for me. I really appreciate you taking the time. If people want to learn more about JLL, their sustainability initiatives, your work, where's the best place for them to go?
I would say our website, Sean, and if you have the ability to post my email address, I'm happy to take any inquiries personally. But our website would be the first place, and there's a place to, get contact information on our website as well.
Yeah, if you want to verbalize your email for our listeners, you can certainly do so.
Yeah, it's very, very simple. It's my first name, David, my last name, Kollmorgen at JLL.com.
Simple enough.
All right.
David, thank you again for this. To all my listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Future of CRE Sustainability. I will see you next time.